Hello, my name is Damon Franklin, and this presentation that I'm doing right now is the final assignment that I have to submit as a student at Delaware Tech. This is going to close out my directed practice too. So normally this presentation would be done in a classroom to people who are beginning the same journey that I started in 2018. But because of COVID, and a lot of things being virtual and continuing to be virtual, even though people are getting vaccinated and we're coming out of it. I'm sitting in my car. Well, I'm sitting in my car because of my roommates who won't stop knocking on my door and asking me stupid questions. So, but back to the presentation. When I think about the physical needs, the intellectual, the emotional, the social, and the spiritual, it is a lot. I really don't think I can do it justice in the next 4 minutes, but I'll give it my best shot. To be quite honest with you, my inability to care for my physical needs is one of the reasons I ended up at Delaware Technical Community College. I had a traumatic back injury and had a lot of free time. I was out of work for 8 months. So I decided that I should probably go back to school. I began to think about the future. So when I became a student, I tried my best to be disciplined with my weight training, and I worked out a lot. It was a way for me to deal with the nervousness of returning to school. But when COVID came, when the gym shut down, I wasn't able to work out. So that became difficult, and I ended up gaining some weight, but I'm back on the path that I was once on. Now, intellectual needs, that didn't really change much. I've always been a reader, and I've been interested in different topics, mostly autobiographies of people throughout history and people who I appreciated, a lot of musicians, things like that. But now emotional, that was also something that contributed to my returning to school, because I really wasn't, my self-care wasn't exactly what it should have been. I thought that as long as I lifted weights and did some things like went to church and 12-step meetings, that my mental health would take care of it. Now, of itself, and that just wasn't the case. And just prior to returning to school, I actually began to seek the help that I believed I needed, and now knew for sure. So the emotional was very tough because it's also tied to spiritual, and so is social. So the social aspect of what I needed to do prior to Del Tech, during my time and after, is I'm in recovery. At this moment right now, I have 9 years clean and sober. Yes. And without having a social network of people who poured into me, there's no way that I would have made it. And I know that from my own experience. In fact, that contributed to me dropping out of school the last time I was in school. And the spiritual, honestly, it was the most important, because I remember my dad saying to me when I was young, I used to talk to him about what I could do in a gym, and he would say, physical exercise is good, but you need to exercise your spiritual muscles. And he was right, because when I was at my darkest time, it was only because I exercised those spiritual muscles and continued to exercise them that I made it through. And I think of the conversations that I had with my mother when I was struggling with life. And she would look at me in that way and just tell me, son, you're going to get it together, in a much more colorful way. If you knew my mom, you would understand. And when she would say that she had no doubt in me, I would look in her eyes and I just believed in her. And as I'm winding down this presentation and I think about everything that went into this moment, I can't help but be overwhelmed. And there's too many people to list, but I do realize that This presentation was based on my PIESS paper, and though I briefly touched on the 5 domains, had I not been able to use those and intertwine them, and at times like have different values for what they represented in my life, they were in effect interchangeable, I wouldn't have made it. I would have dropped out of school like I did previously. And I just want to thank all my instructors and classmates at Del Tech, because they helped me get back to school and stay back in school. And for that, I'm truly grateful. So, thanks. That's my presentation. Went over by about a minute, but hey, it's better than being under, right?